The Shuttle Tebrau is a cross-border train between Malaysia and Singapore. It is a 5-minute train ride across the Johor Strait from JB Sentral Station in Johor Bahru, Malaysia, to the Woodlands Train Checkpoint in Singapore. With 31 daily trips, 18 southbound and 13 northbound, the Shuttle Tebrau is popular with travelers and weekly commuters for its simplicity compared to the complicated web of bus operators. Here's how to use the Shuttle Tebrau. To use the Shuttle Tebrau, I recommend booking tickets online, even though you can book tickets at the counter. As this service is frequently used by commuters, compounded by the fact each train only holds 320 passengers, tickets for popular trips often sell out weeks in advance. You can do that at shuttleonline.ktmb.com.my. Tickets cost 5 Malaysian ringgits going south to Singapore and 5 Singaporean dollars going north to Malaysia, effectively making trips to Malaysia 3 times as expensive as tickets to Singapore. As this is an international service, make sure you input your name and passport information correctly. Passports must not expire within the next 30 days. Get to the station on time. If you are traveling southbound from JB Sentral to Woodlands, boarding begins 30 minutes before departure, and gates close 10 minutes before departure. If you miss your train, too bad. You will have to scramble for other options, which could mean booking a different train hours later or having to take, you guessed it, a bus. Once boarding begins, a line will form in front of the fare gates. Your passport is your boarding pass, and the fare gates will recognize it. You will pass through Malaysia Immigration's exit procedure in JB Sentral before boarding. Once you make it to the platform, you may enter any car and pick any seat. The ride itself barely takes 5 minutes as you soak in the views of the Johor Strait and the traffic on the parallel Johor Causeway. Once you arrive at Woodlands Train Checkpoint, you will pass through Singapore Customs and Immigration. Finally, you have entered Singapore, where you can take a variety of buses to the MRT, Singapore's metro system, or your destination. Traveling northbound from Woodlands to JB Sentral, get to the station earlier because boarding begins 40 minutes before departure and closes 20 minutes before departure. The extra time is there because the Singaporean and Malaysian immigration facilities are co-located at Woodlands Train Checkpoint. This does mean that once you get to JB Sentral, you are free to exit the station. So, how did this all happen? While trains were able to reach Johor Bahru on the Federated Malay State Railways by 1909, the first train to roll directly between Johor Bahru and Singapore across the causeway began about 100 years ago on October 1st, 1923, supporting British's Southeast Asian trade empire. During the 1950s, as British Malaya transformed into Malaysia, the rail service connecting Johor Bahru and Singapore was operated domestically by Malaysia's national rail operator, Kereta Api Tengah Melayu, also known as KTM. The Johor Bahru Singapore rail service was a domestic service for the 2-year period when Singapore was part of Malaysia from the Malaysia Agreement in 1963 until the proclamation of Singapore in 1965. Even as Malaysia and Singapore parted ways, KTM, and by extension Malaysia, still withheld the right to run trains to Tanjung Pagar Station near downtown Singapore. One of the biggest challenges was KTM's occupancy of valuable real estate in the heart of Singapore at Tanjung Pagar Station. This sparked a dispute that lasted for decades and resulted in the Points of Agreement of 1990, which ordered Malaysia to relocate its facilities to Bukit Timah in the middle of the line in Singapore, so Singapore could regain control of the land. Despite the agreement, the relocation was delayed, causing confusion and inconvenience for travelers. Passengers would often find their passports not stamped by Malaysian officials in Tanjung Pagar because it was before they were cleared to exit Singapore. Finally, in 2010, the Points of Agreement supplement was signed, outlining how KTM would transfer its railway land to Singapore and transfer customs and immigration facilities to Woodlands Train Checkpoint. Sadly, this also meant that the rail line in Singapore past Woodlands was abandoned and converted into a rail trail, with Bukit Timah Station being preserved and Tanjung Pagar Station dedicated as a national monument. In my opinion, closing the rail line was a mistake and a missed opportunity to create a high-quality electrified international rail link, which could have connected Singapore to a plethora of cities in Malaysia. Nevertheless, KTM services now terminate at Woodlands Train Checkpoint. In 2015, all long-distance intercity services were truncated to JB Sentral, while the Shuttle Tebrau, in its current form, took effect. Service was temporarily suspended on March 24, 2020, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and resumed on June 13, 2022. This makes the Shuttle Tebrau the only train between Malaysia and Singapore. But there is also the Eastern and Oriental Express, a luxury train from Singapore to Bangkok that runs 32 times a year, but is not a public transportation option for most. Here is my experience on the Shuttle Tebrau. It was our second day in Malaysia, and I was traveling with my brother and the not-so-worrisome travel partner. We were staying in an Airbnb in Kuala Lumpur that had fewer real beds than we would have liked. If we hadn't had enough already, the poor Airbnb gave me and my brother another reason to make a trip to Singapore. It was me who decided to take the train. Because we couldn't get tickets for the daytime train tomorrow, we decided to leave KL tonight. The not-so-worrisome travel partner was actually worrisome for once. Worried that we were running late for the train, he hailed us a taxi cab to the station at KL Central. Our mostly booked ETS train was scheduled to leave at 9:40 and arrive at Gemas at 12:10 a.m. the next day. We waited almost 2 hours in the small waiting room at Gemas for our intercity train at 2 a.m. for a 6:25 arrival into JB Sentral. That train took the bright cabin lights and the air-conditioned in air-conditioned second class a bit too seriously. Being the American that I was, I willingly gave up a Shuttle Tebrau train numbered 69 because I had to give myself at least an extra hour just in case my train was late. Our intercity train from Gemas was right on time, and we watched the passengers from Shuttle Tebrau Train 69 board while we had to wait. Our trip on Shuttle Train 71 happened at just about sunrise, from 7:30 to 7:35. We were able to conveniently get in the gates and to the train. Our ride went smoothly without any issues, and we were able to conveniently get through Singapore's facilities so we could battle with the crowd trying to get to the checkpoint for the first northbound train of the day. It was our first time in Singapore on August 9th, the National Day of Singapore. The entrance to the Woodlands station is a dreaded field for your average American transit station's kiss and ride loop. We made our way to the bus shelter in the sweltering 7 a.m. heat and took the first bus available to an MRT station. I could not pay. The bus went to Kranji MRT station, where we bought SIM cards for Singapore and my transit card. My battery was running low, and I could not get my SIM card to work until after I got to the hotel. We took the North-South MRT line to City Hall, where we walked to our windowless hotel room. The future of the Shuttle Tebrau may be in jeopardy, as the service could come to an end by 2027 with the opening of the Johor Bahru Singapore Rapid Transit System, also known as the RTS. This new system promises to provide a more efficient and convenient way for commuters to travel between these two cities, toasting 15-minute total travel time with co-located customs and immigration facilities, which would allow passengers to leave Malaysia and enter Singapore and vice versa before stepping foot on the vehicle. However, until then, the Gemas to JB Sentral double tracking and electrification project will bring even more passengers to the Shuttle Tebrau, making it an even more popular mode of transportation for at least the next 3 years. The project is set to be completed by not early 2022, not mid 2023, but according to my calculations, April 2024. The increased passenger traffic from the north will give the shuttle one last chance to shine before the RTS takes over.